Yes, darling.
Okay, okay. Whoever enters a walled city recites two prayers, one when entering and one when leaving. I mean, Azai says four, two when he enters and two when leaving. One gives thanks for the past and supplicates for the future. One is obliged to bless for the evil, just as one blesses for the good, since it is said, "And you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your life, and with all your might, with all your heart, but with both your inclinations, the good and the bad, and with all your life, even at the cost of your life, and with all your might, with all your material possessions." Another invitation of with all your might, whatever the treatment God um, metes out to you. Thank him very much, very much. One should avoid showing disrespect in the direction of the Eastern Gate because it is in direct line with the Holy of Holies. One may not enter the Temple Mount with a stick, with his shoes, with his wallet, and the dust on his feet, nor may one make a shortcut and to spit. All the concluding formulas of the brachos in the temple concluded the saying of forever. When the heretics caught corruptly and said there is only one world, they instituted that they should say from everlasting to everlasting. They also ordained that people should greet one another with the use of the name, as it says, and behold, Boaz came from Bethlehem and said to the reapers, "The Lord be with you." And they replied, "The Lord bless you." And it says, "God be with you, mighty man of valor." And it says, despise not your mother when she is old. And it says, it's time to act for the Lord. They have made void your Torah. But Nathan says they have made void your Torah because it is a time to act for the Lord.
Hadron Alaf, Maseches Brachos.
Okay.
Okay, and one from Peah.
These things have no measure. The corn, the fruit, the first fruits, the ri'on, deeds of loving kindness and study of the Torah. These are the things, the fruits of which a man enjoys in the world, and the principal remains for him in the world to come. The honoring of one's father and mother, the deeds of loving kindness and making peace between a man and his fellow, and the study of Torah is equal to them all.
Okay. So now, having just learned that Peah doesn't have any shiur, in other words, no matter how little you give, no matter how much you give, that's called Peah. The Mishnah comes to teach us that actually, in practice, that's not so. Ein pochasim lepeah mishishim. You cannot leave less than 1/60th of your field for Peah. Because Chazal made this minimum share. Afal pi amru ein lepeah shiur. Even though we don't have an official shiur for Peah, nonetheless Chazal made a minimum so that people wouldn't be stingy and make sure that you leave a proper amount. Hakol lefi godel hasadeh, and furthermore that even that 1/60th is a guideline. But if you've got you should also look at it in context. How big is your field? If you rov aniyim, and how many aniyim are there? Like if you've got a small field and a lot of aniyim, then you should probably leave a little bit more payah. Well, if you rov anava, and also according to how much anava there is. Now, anava we normally translate as humility, but that doesn't quite make sense in this context over here. Um, so Kahati explained that Anava is talking about how good the crop is. And how does he, based on what? Because there's a pasuk in Hosea that says, "Haaretz ta'aneh es hadagan." So he's saying it's from the root of ta'aneh es hadagan. In other words, that it's and or else you can explain that anava is like as if it was written with a base instead of a vav. In other words, the how big are the grapes? But he says that the idea behind it is that how rich was the bounty of the crop. So if it's a say if it's a nice if your crop is good and there's a lot to give out, then great, you leave a 60th. But if it's not such a great crop and the aniyim are not going to get much out of it, then you should leave more.
Mhm.
Okay. Nosnin pea mitchilas hasadeh umeemtza'ah. Okay, so before we actually translate that one, the actual halacha of the payah is that you're supposed to leave over, right? Is that you're supposed to start harvesting a field and leave over the part that's going to be payah. And there are many reasons for that. For example, one reason Kahati gives is because of Gezel Aniyim. because he might, if he sort of conceals the Peah that he's giving and calls his poor cousin and says, "Listen, you want some Peah? I'm leaving over a section in the middle of my field over there. Nobody else knows. You can come and take it all, and the rest of the aniyim lose out." Okay, so it should be in a place that's known to all. Secondly, because of bitul aniyim, because the aniyim are sitting and waiting for uh, because he sees that the Balasaria is busy harvesting, but it's going to be a long time before he gets to the end of the field, so he goes somewhere else. And meanwhile, he's left the payer somewhere else and told the Aniyim, come and get this, come and get from here. And it's not. It should be a standardized thing where everyone knows. Third thing is Miplei Chashad, that people will look at him and say, "Hey, he just harvested the end of his field and kept it. This guy's not even keeping the mitzvah of payah, so it doesn't look good for him." And fourthly, because of Ramayim, because of tricksters, um, uh, and where you wouldn't be able to say, "Oh, we've already left payah, in the middle of the field," and he didn't really because, but he's got an alibi, or you can't prove him wrong because he can say, "Oh, but I left it at the beginning of the field and the aniyim already took from there." So at any rate, the standard that Chazal wanted is that people leave the payah at the end of the field. But nonetheless, the Mishnah comes and says in the first sentence over here, "Nosnin payah mitchila sasadeh me'emtzais." But diavad, if you did it, it's okay. It's
Mhm.
written kind of in a sort of a lechatchila way, but really it's meant to. This is as a b'diavad, says the Tanna Kama. If you did it that way, then no, you did it. Okay. Rabbi Shimon Omer ubilvad sheyitain besof kashior says no. You're not yotze unless you also left 1/60th at the end of the field, and then both parts are considered payah, and that's fine. What's the nafkamina that it's called payah as opposed to just hefker? Is that hefker is for everyone to take, and payah is only for aniyim to take.
Yeah.
Okay. B'vat sheyitain b'sof kashir. Rabbi Yehuda Omer im shier kelach echad. He says, well, actually, if he just left one stalk of grain at the end of the field and said, well, that together with the stuff I left at the beginning, that's payah. That's also all right. Somech lo mishum payah. V'im lav eino nosen ela mishum hefker. But if he failed to leave anything over at the end of the field, then whatever he left at the beginning of the field is not considered payah, and whoever took from it is just considered like it was hefker. And now, what has he got to do to fix himself up? Well, from his harvested crop, he's now got to take the payah and leave it out for the aniyam if he had forgotten. Okay. Mishnah Daled. Klal amru payah. Your general rule. What is liable for payah? There are five conditions. One, it's got to be food. So we're not talking about cotton. You don't leave payah for cotton. Okay. Nishmar, and it must be something that would be guarded. In other words, not just things that were hefker that happen to be growing inside your property. And okay, begidulav mina aretz, and of course it's got to be something that grows from the ground. Now that's not a silly thing because you also have mushrooms. Mushrooms are not subject to payah because they don't have roots going into the ground. They just grow off whatever they land on. Okay. Lakita soka achas, and harvest time has got to be a single movement, which excludes figs, because figs are constantly ripening and all the time, and you keep going out and picking more figs. Okay. Machniso lekiyum, and furthermore, it's got to be able to last in the storehouse. So there's some vegetables that you pick and you can't really keep them in storage because they'll just perish, and that's also not susceptible to payah. So all of these cases, chayav b'payah, v'atvua, v'kitnius b'chlal zeh. So that includes both grain and legumes. Okay,
Yeah.
and let's go back to brachas.
The farmers today, I mean, this is a halakha that they have to follow. I
Mistama, yes. The from farmers should be leaving pay of their. It's not something that's dependent on the mikdash. Pay is
right.
one of those gifts that you're supposed to give to the aniyim.
That's what I thought. So I just said,
I'm not sure how they do it Lamasi because I can't actually imagine a bunch of Aniyim turning up at the field and taking the.
right, that's what I'm thinking. So, okay. I took my tissue out, so I don't remember where I am.
Okay, we're in Vav Dalid.
Oh, no, okay. Oh, no, okay. If many varieties were placed before him, Rabbi Yehuda says, if one of the seven is among them, he recites the blessing over it, and the comments say he blesses over whatever he wishes. If one recited the blessing over wine before the meal, he has exempted the wine drunk after the meal. If one recited a bracha over the parpet before the meal, he need not recite any of the blessing over the parpet after the conclusion of the meal. If he recited the blessing over bread, he exempted the parrot. Over parrot, he does not exempt the bread. And Ben Shammai says also not any cooked dish. If they were sitting upright to eat, each one blesses for himself. If they recline, one blesses for all. If wine is brought to them during the meal, each one blesses for himself. And after the meal, one may bless for all. He also recites the blessing over the incense, even though the incense is served after the meal.
Okay,
Okay, right place. Okay,
right. Tvillium.
all right. So, okay, Daled base. A woman who is a Tevel Yom may knead a dough, and she separates challah and sets it aside and places it on an Egyptian tray or on a plank. And she brings the tray or a plank close and orally designates the piece of dough as challah, because the dough is a shlishi, and a shlishi is a tahor in the case of kula. Regarding a kneading bowl that is Tevel Yom, we may knead a dough in it and separate challah from it. And she brings the piece close and orally designates it as challah, because the dough is a shlishi, and shlishi is tahor in the case of kula. Regarding a pitcher that is tevel yom that one filled from a barrel of meiser, that is tevel, if he said this wine shall be trumas meiser after dark, it is trumas meiser. If he said this wine shall be an erev, he has said nothing, has said not said anything. If the barrel breaks, the wine in the pitcher remains tevel, and if the pitcher breaks, the wine in the barrel remains tevel.
Okay.
Okay.
And Taurus Tes Dalid.
One who finishes olives and left over one porous box should place it in the presence of a Kohen. These are the words of Reb Meir. Reb Yehuda says you should bring the key immediately, and Reb Shimon says from the time he finishes to the same time the next day. If one places olives in a crusher in order that they soften so that they should be easy to crush, they are susceptible to tuma. If he left them there in order that they are to soften, then he may salt them. The Shammai says they are susceptible, but Beis Hillel says they are not susceptible. If one squashes olives with his tummy hands, he has made them tummy. If one places olives on the roof in order to cure them individually, then even if they are piled to the height of a cubit, they have not become susceptible. And if he put them in the house so that it should not decay, but he intends in the future to take them up to the roof, or if he put them on the roof so they should not decay, or so he will, or so that he will then open them, they are susceptible. If he put them into the house until he is able to safeguard his roof, or until he can bring them up to another place, they have not become susceptible. Okay.
Yeah.
On to Midos. Okay. Gimel Aleph. The altar was 32 amos by 32 amos. It ascended 1 amot and went in with 1 amot. This tear was the base. It is found to be 30 by 30 amos. It descended 5 amos and went inward 1 amot. This tear was the ledge. It was found to be 28 by 28 amot. The place for the horns measured an amma and this side on this side and an amma on this side. It is found to be 26 by 26 amma. The place where the feet of the Kohanim walk measured an amma on this side and an amma on that side. It is found to be 24 by 24 amos. This is the space for the pyre. The Yossi said originally the altar was only 28 by 28 amos. It had narrowed and ascended in the same manner until it found that the space for the pyre measured only 20 by 20. But when the exiles ascended, they added to the altar 4 amos to the south and 4 amos to the west in the shape of a gamma. It is stated, as it is stated, and the heart area is 12 amos long by 12 wide square. It might be thought that the space for the pyre was only 12 by 12. When the verse states for its 4 quadrants, it reaches that it is from the center point of the altar, that the verse is measured 20 amos in each direction. And a line of red encircled the altar at the halfway point of the height to separate between the upper bloods and the lower bloods. and the base traversed the entire north side and the entire west side of the altar, and it consumes one amma in the south and one amma in the east. At the end southwest corner, there were two holes like two fine nostrils, so that sacrificial bloods were placed, which were placed on the western base and on the southern base would drain through them and mix together in the stream, and the blood-enriched water would flow out to the Kidron Valley. Below on the floor of that corner was a hollow place that measured one amma by one amma, and on the top of this hollow there was a marble tile with a ring fixed in it, and through that they would descend to the sheesh to clean it. And there was a ramp to the south of the altar, which measured 32 amos by a width of 16 amos, and the ramp had an alcove built in it to its west side, where they would place the unfixed bird katos offerings.
Okay. Metzia.
Yeah. Okay. We have Vav. A person may stipulate for himself, for his son and a daughter who are of age, for his male slave and female slaves who are of age, and for his wife because they have understanding, but he may not stipulate for his son and daughter who are minors, nor for his male slave and female slave who are minors, nor for an animal, since they have no understanding. If one hires laborers to work in his via plantings, they may not eat. If he did not notify them, he must redeem like the fruit and give them to eat. If his fig cakes were separated or his cakes open, they may not eat. But if he did not notify them, he must hide the fruit and give them to eat. Shomer and a produce may eat by virtue of common custom, but not by virtue of biblical law, and they may pay for loss and theft. One wolf is not an unavoidable accident. Two wolves is
No,
an
that's it. We're done there.
good. Okay,
Yeah.
Larry and Pesach. Okay, Zion. If one designates a female animal for this Pesach offering, or male in its second year, it must be left to pasture until it develops a blemish and is sold, and its money is placed in a donated offering. If one had designated his Pesach offering and then died, his son who inherits may not bring it to a Pesach offering, but rather as a peace offering. If the Pesach offering was confused with other offerings, they must all be left to pasture until they develop blemishes and are sold. Then he should bring this type of offering equivalent in value to the best of them, and he should bring the other type of offering equivalent to value to the best of them, and he must cover the added cost from his own purse. If he was confused with verse 1 offerings, where Shimon says if the group is composed of Kohanim, they may eat the offering. A group that lost its Pesach offering and said to one, go out, seek it, and slaughter it for us. And he went out, found it, slaughtered it, and slaughtered it. And meanwhile, they brought and slaughtered another. If this was slaughtered first, it eats of his, and if they eat of his with him. If theirs was slaughtered first, they eat of theirs, and he eats of his. But if it's not known which of them was slaughtered first, or if both were slaughtered at the same time, then he eats of his, but they do not eat with him, and theirs must be burned. But they are exempt from observing the second Pesach. If he said to them, if I delay, go and slaughter for me. And if he went out and found it and slaughtered it, meanwhile they bought it and slaughtered it another. If theirs was slaughtered first, they eat of theirs and he eats with them. If this was slaughtered first, he eats of his and he eats of theirs. But it is not known which was slaughtered first, or if both were slaughtered at the same time, then they eat of theirs. But he does not eat with them, and his is burned, but is exempt from observing the second Pesach. If he said to them and they said to him, all of them eat of the first, but it is not known which of them was slaughtered first, both are burned. If he said nothing to them and they said nothing to him, they are not responsible for each other.
Okay.
Okay.
But
all right.
All right. Shavua Tov.
Shavua Tov. Have a great day. Enjoy. I'll see you tomorrow. It's a shame. Thank you. Thank you.